Race for the Record, Chapter 10, Race to the Bay. Alistair had no idea how long he lay on the sand. He blinked his eyes open, but the world was still dark. Rain pelted his skin like stinging nettles. Ooh. He didn't want to move, but the tide, he had to get away from the tide. Struggling out of the life ring, he painfully pulled himself on his knees and farther away from the crashing waves behind him. In the darkness, he felt sharp blades of grass beneath his hands, then bumped up against the scaly bark of the coconut palm. With a groan of relief, he collapsed at the floor of the tree and lost consciousness. A strong hand was shaking his shoulder. Alistair opened his eyes and stared into the lined, weathered, beaten face of an old man. As Alistair struggled to sit up, the man grinned widely, revealing several missing teeth. The rest were stained with betel nut juice. Don't know what that is. Something for us to look up. A steel gray daylight lit the beach. The rain had stopped, but the clouds still hung low. The wind whipped the palm fronds above Alistair's head like a crowd of children at fiesta, frantically waving their hands to grab candy being tossed in the air. The man kept saying something Alistair didn't understand and lifted him to his feet. For the first time, Alistair noticed his shoes were gone, and he had only one sock. Sand clung to his wet shirt and shorts. He pulled off the sock, and with the man's arm around him, let the old man lead him slowly down a grassy path. In a few minutes, they came to a cluster of thatched bamboo huts in a little clearing, standing off the ground on stilts. Pigs, chickens, and even a few goats wandered underneath the huts. A large fishing net, needing repair, was strung between two palm trees. Off to the side, several canoes without their outrigger pontoons lay on their sides. A swarm of dark-haired children stared as the old man half pushed Alistair up the ladder to the porch of his hut. He went inside and came back a moment later with a hand-woven blanket, which he put around the boy's shoulders. He disappeared once more and brought back a wooden bowl of thin, white liquid. Gratefully, Alistair tipped the bowl to his mouth. Coconut milk. The milk seemed to send strength through Alistair's blood, and his mind cleared. He had escaped from the Huck rebels. He hadn't drowned. He was safe on land. But where was he? He coughed a couple times, then tried to speak. "Aberlin?" he asked the old man. "Is this Aberlin?" The man just looked at him for a moment, puzzled. Then he flashed his brown-stained teeth. See, Aberlin!" And he pointed through the trees. Relief flooded through Alistair's exhausted body. He knew Aberlin was a bigger town than this little cluster of fishing huts. The town must be nearby. He tried again through chattering teeth. "I have a friend at the farm school." The man looked puzzled, then shrugged. Alistair's head sank into his hands. How was he going to make the man understand? The man stood up, rattled off a string of words at one of the children, gawking up at the strange boy with freckled skin and copper hair. The child ran off. A short while later, the child returned with a young woman in her 20s, wearing a flowing skirt, an embroidered white blouse, and a colorful scarf covering her long dark hair. "Hello," she said in English, her eyes wide open in genuine surprise. "So you're the fish Grandfather dragged from the sea this morning?" "Oh, I'm very glad you speak English," said Alistair, scrambling to his feet. Many Filipinos in the town spoke both English and Filipino, the official language in the Philippines, even though there were dozens of different dialects scattered over the islands. I never knew that. I wonder if it's still that way. Probably. I fell off a boat, but I must get to the farm school in Aberlin. Do you know where it is?" The young woman raised one eyebrow. "You just fell off a boat?" I see." She seemed skeptical, but to Alistair's relief, she asked no more questions. "Yes, I can take you to the farm school, but we must hurry because I need to go to work." She turned to the old man. "Thank you, Grandfather. I will take the boy now. Come, come, we must hurry. Alistair bowed his thanks to the old man, then scrambled down the ladder and hurried after the young woman, who was disappearing between the trees. Alistair didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw a tall young man striding toward him. Lestani's long hair had been cut short. Otherwise, he looked the same. Suddenly, all the doubts and fears of the past 12 hours were washed away in a flood of relief. He had found Lestani. Everything was going to be all right now. Alistair, said the Palawanos in astonishment. Why you here? How you come? Alistair looked nervously at the principal of the farm school, who stood on the covered porch of the school office, watching them. All right, the man said, waving them away. You boys talk. Then come see me, Lestani. All right? He disappeared into the office. The boys walked over to a wooden bench. Joy Ritterhoff. She came, Alistair said. The words came out in a rush. But the record didn't work. And now she's in Puerto Princesa, and I've come for you. You must come with me today. Lestani stared at him. Alistair, you talking crazy talk. Look at you. Your clothes wet. You shivering. You no shoes. Did you walk? Did you swim? There was a storm last night. Where is your father and mother? Alistair blinked to keep back tears. He was tired. He was hungry. He didn't feel very good. But taking a big breath, Alistair started at the beginning. And an old fisherman found me on the beach, and here I am, Alistair finished after telling the whole story. Please, Lestani, you must come back with me to Puerto Princesa right away, before Miss Ritterhoff leaves for Manila. It's our last chance to make gospel records for your people. Lestani stood back and paced back and forth, his fingers gripping the Lambos' good luck charm around his neck. Oh, he still has that, does he? Why are these records so important? I can't leave farm school just because you come foolish. But, he whirled on Alistair, American ladies sick with worry by now. You such fool. You could be killed now, or drowned. He rolled his eyes, then resumed pacing, muttering to himself. Then he stopped. I must take you back to American lady. What I must do. With that, Lestani ran up the path to the school office and disappeared inside. It had never occurred to Alistair how they were going to get back to Puerto Princesa. The idea of returning with the fishing boat now seemed impossible, but as they turned out of the gate of the school and headed north along the coastal road, Alistair looked up at Lestani in surprise. Going to walk? Lestani snorted. Do you have caribou cart? Or horse? Maybe motor car hidden in bushes? But Alistair looked at his bare feet, plodding along the muddy, rutted road. He would never be able to walk 30 miles with no shoes. Even with shoes. How long would it take? 10 hours? 15? Alistair pressed his lips together tightly. He already looked like a foolish little boy in Lestani's eyes. He wasn't going to complain now. The two boys walked steadily along the dirt road that ran along the coast. Sometimes they could see the sea, gray and choppy under a dull sky. At other times, the road ran into the forest, passing small barrios full of chattering children and caribou carts loaded with coconuts, bananas, or palm fronds to repair the thatched roof houses. Alistair was grateful when Lestani called a halt and opened up the pocket of food the school cook had tied up in a cloth sling. He gave Alistair some cold rice cakes, and they shared a smoked fish. Out of habit, Alistair bowed his head to say a quick blessing on the food. When he looked up, Lestani was staring at him. All too soon they were back on their feet, but the food revived Alistair's spirit, and he swung along the rutted road, trying to ignore the blister forming on his foot. Ooh. Wind rising, said Lestani, looking at the swaying treetops. Sure enough, the sky opened and sheets of rain dove in front of the sea, soaking both boys. Lestani grabbed Alistair's shirt and pulled him along so they wouldn't get separated in the storm. Gradually the rain eased, but walking was more difficult now in the wet, muddy road. How long had they been traveling? Alistair put one foot in front of the other, trying to ignore the aches in his legs. Left, right, left, right. Good rejoicing practice. Slogged through the mud, dodged the puddle. Good rejoicing practice. Suddenly, out of nowhere it seemed, a jeepney came roaring toward them, blowing its jarring horns. The boys barely had time to jump out of the way before the jeep-like bus, painted a garish red and yellow, with swirls and mirrors and reflectors decorating its hood and windshield, bounced past them, sending a spray of mud all over them. A handful of passengers waved and hollered out the open window as they passed, and then the boys stood staring at its tailgate, bouncing over the ruts as it disappeared around the bend. "Do you think it'll come back?" Alistair said hopefully. Lestani shrugged. After another rest and eating the last of the rice cakes, the boys plodded on. Alistair lost all track of time. How many hours had gone by since the jeepney had passed? 1, 2. He concentrated on a tree at the side of the road, up ahead till they passed it, and then picked another point to reach for, as if pulling himself along by an invisible rope. And then they heard it again, the roar of a jeepney engine behind them. Soon the garish vehicle bounced into sight again, blaring its horn for them to get out of the way. But instead, Lestani faced the jeepney in the middle of the road and waved it to a stop. The driver it's pouring down rain. It just started pouring down rain here in a storm. The driver braked to a noisy stop and peered at them through the open door. Wonder who it is. Think of somebody they know? I don't know. Maybe it'll take them the rest of the way. Let's hope.